willkommen zu einer neuen Folge Jazzrock TV. Heute wieder mal mit einem Interview, denn wir hatten die große Ehre, den Schlagzeuger John J.R. Robinson zu einem Zoom-Interview zu bekommen. Und zwar geht's um sein Buch, was gerade vor ein paar Wochen erschienen ist. Könnt ihr auch in Deutschland hier über Amazon bekommen. Darüber haben wir mit ihm gesprochen und auch ansonsten über seine unfassbare Karriere, in der er ja mit allem, was Rang und Namen hat, gespielt hat. Von Jazz, Rock, Pop, sag ich mal, von Larry Carlton bis Lady Gaga ist da alles dabei. Legendär natürlich die Sachen mit Rufus und Chaka Khan und mit Quincy Jones. Da hören wir ein bisschen was zu im Interview. Also, hier ist mein Interview mit John J.R. Robinson. Viel Spaß.
See, here's my late night jazz voice. How are you?
Good, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Sorry if there was any confusion from the earlier days.
No problem, no problem. You have been on vacation as well, right?
Oh, God. Well, that was a month and a half ago. Yeah. I hadn't had a vacation in 10 years. So my fiance and I went down to Roatan Island off of Honduras.
Nice.
Yeah, it was like, whoa, completely different thing. But now, when I'm back into the hard grind, we released my book, King of the Groove, about 3 weeks ago on October 1st. And now I'm just getting ready for a whole bunch of stuff all at the same time.
Yeah, the book was announced quite a while ago, right? And it, now the release. I saw you made a live stream. I didn't saw it, but so I think you have a lot of promotion, activities.
I've got a beautiful team with Brian, my manager, and Chris D, my publicist, and Eric Audio, my agent, and Ali Mang is my producer. So, it's good after all this time doing what I've done is now kind of changing hats a bit,
It's also some, you know what? When I prepared for this, I was thinking yesterday or on the weekend. I said, okay, let's get the albums I have. Where you played, but very quickly I recognized, it will be too much. It will be too many.
Well, you could pick something obscure.
that would be a nice idea.
All right, oh shit, what's his name? An English artist. We did Tubular Bells. What was his name?
Mike Oldfield.
Mike Oldfield. So I did like Tubular Bells 2 through 90, and I also did the Olympic theme with him 2 Olympics ago.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's some obscure music within this music of his, and
I think Mike Oldfield. To be honest, when I was young and started to look into music a bit more than just listening to radio, I was a fan of Mike Oldfield. These days. But you're right. It's something is kind still. It's a bit weird, but it's still. It was nice ideas and a concept besides the usual stuff, right? I think.
Well, and that's what makes him jump out. And when opportunities like that have come into my life, I'll take them. And sometimes they don't pay as much as some other huge thing. That's why I don't go on the road that much. I mean, when I do, it's very specialized, or it's for myself. But to be able to take a project like Tony Banks from Genesis, I ended up doing his solo record in 94, 95, and it's very unique, very unique music, So.
But I think that's and I think we talk about your book then, but thinking about your life in music, which is now more than 50 years, I think you are in.
Well, I mean, I may still look a little young, thank God, but I've been playing drums for 61 years.
Wow.
But 50 and 50 as a professional, yeah.
And that's and if I look when you started, at least what I read from the information available. It started very quickly, right? You toured with your band, and then by coincidence you got into this business, and 1 year later you were been in the studio with Michael Jackson. So that was kind of kickstart, right?
Well, you could look at it that way, but I busted my hump from age 5 as a piano player to when I started playing drums between 7 and 8, and then turning pro at 10, and then from 10 getting through junior high and high school with all of that stuff, then going to Berkeley and then going through all that stuff, and then it wasn't just a kickstart, but I can see what you're saying. Once my band Shelter was discovered. Then I was, definitely with MJ, yes.
But that was a quick decision, yeah, right? To go into this professional way of, being a professional drummer. That was kind of a very early and clear decision. There was no other ideas. Okay, let's go to study, something else. So what?
My father started me on piano at 5, but he was an optometrist, a doctor of optometry, but he was also just brilliant in all sorts of aspects. I was way too young to play piano, so when the drum bolt gods hit me, it was a natural progression. So, what was your question?
No, because when you started, to decide that this is your professional way and not
Yeah,
do something else.
yeah. There was no alternative decision at age 10. At age 10, I go, man, I really like this. I mean, to a point. This may sound weird, but for drummers tuning in, when they change their drum head and they take the rim off and they look at that beautiful wood shell, I smell it.
Yeah, it's
I put
love
my
at first sight. Yeah.
Probably like that damn Telecaster you're sitting back there. You're like, oh God, I love this. It can't be doing it. But when I was getting ready to go to Berkeley, coming out of my senior year in Creston, Iowa, and Berkeley and Boston, and my dad goes, well, you can always follow my footsteps and go to optometric school, and you got to go to 4 years of this, and then maybe at least 2 years of doctorate. And if you want to become a doctor, it's 8 years. And I go, no,
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 not ready for this.
no. So
Nice.
yeah,
That's a good start, but as you said, there are so many people that you work with, and there's a lot of impressive things in what you're doing, but I think it's really the variety, as you said before. It's really from jazz and stuff, pop stuff, and even Lady Gaga, or whatever, Barbra Streisand, you name it. It's a huge variety with different styles. So that style, was that something that was you really liked from the beginning, or it kind of, you started with one thing and then because of the job spread out in all these styles?
I think it's both of those. I mean, when you're 8, or and literally playing the drums, but there's nobody to play with. What do? You emulate what my mother used to teach me and father with big band music and swing grooves. So whatever those were, I think the key word is groove. So I personally never put myself in a certain kind of box. Oh gosh, I have to stick with R&B. Or when I joined Glenn Frey from the Eagles for that year, I have to play simple eighth note music, or whatever, or playing cubano music and learning that drum set is really not part of your music. But okay, what do I do with this? And that but I adapt. It's about adapting. I've always had the adage where, sure, I was in Rufus with Chaka Khan, and we were a Grammy-winning band, but it didn't last, unfortunately. But I was in all these other bands. So my adage is, I loved Neil Peart. God bless his soul. Friggin' genius. Genius. I mean, brain. He's a genius. And
He's from Rush, yeah?
yeah, but the thing is, that's what I tried to do when I was 12. I had a Cream clone band, and that was the fashion. That's what we did. And my old thing is, I would rather be in 1,000 bands than one band. And not that, take anything away from Rush, but it's just one band. It's like you're sleeping with the same woman forever. And it's a bad analogy there, so forgive the young
Be
the
careful
boys.
what you say. Fiance is listening, so.
Well, I mean, she's going to probably agree with me. Congratulations. And what's her name? Mine is Allie, my fiance. So good. Congratulations. Wait a minute. Wait. Screw that. Did you put a proper rock on her finger? Uh-oh, I'm embarrassing you. Well, you will. Okay. Anyway.
But I think if I understand your point, but at least for all this different style, you really have to, as a drummer, as you said, there's something like which might sound simple, but you need to have some kind of passion to do this and to really deliver this, with all these different styles. Otherwise, you would not deliver what they want, right?
Yeah, and I don't walk in there necessarily. That's my first thought. Let's say I'm going into a session. Geez, what do they want? What do they want? In other words, that puts you behind an 8-ball, a curtain of and handcuffs you. So I usually walk into, I don't care who the artist is, and listen to the song. Then once you analyze the song, then you can then start to interject questions about would this particular sound work? Would this groove work with you? What if I tuned this particular drum or use a different cymbal here? And I'm just letting you, and I always do that without asking. I'll immediately interject and insert the correct sonics that fits the song. And then I also use my style to then add frosting, which would be maybe I have a deeper bass drum tune, but it's still tight than most drummers. My bass drum lies exactly on the one, whereas some other drummers may be delaying the entire, all 4 limbs, and just aspects of that. So I went into some deep, deep drum thought there. And by the way, all of this is in my book.
I was just about to ask, all these stories, the book just released, but the name, is this a name that, a King of the Groove, somebody gave to you, or there might be a story about the name?
Yeah, and listen, all the drummers that are listening and that tune in and have some sort of a sarcastic comment about that name, King of the Groove. I mean, one guy goes, why do you call it King of the Groove? And I go, and I bring it back, I go, there's only one king. It's Jesus. It's like, let's just get, so it came from sources saying that what is the whole point of the title, King of the Groove? Well, it means that I've mastered groove in popular rock, R&B, and jazz senses that maybe I am honored to actually take that title and to have that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily say that Steve Gadd or Steve Jordan isn't equally as king of their grooves. So it's a book, and that's kind of what it's all about. It's not about drums either. It's about life and learning and experiences, but there are some serious drum stories in here too.
I can imagine, but it's from all these years and all these people that you met, I think there's different things of projects where you have been involved, which might give you some more freedom to bring in your style, your ideas, but others might be just play what's on the sheet.
Well, that's, I mean, jingles, when we were doing a lot more jingles, and I came into Los Angeles later than the veterans like Hal and Keltner and Picaro and Jim Gordon, quite frankly. And when I started getting into that side with Jingle World, man, I'm going to play this unbelievably hip stuff. And then finally, the contractor, like Don Pystrup, famous arranger, goes, all right, we got 7 minutes to cut these 3 spots. Go. I go, oh, geez. So you just better output the best possible thing with mistakes. Boom, done. We're done. Next one. So jingles were different. Rock and roll, when I would play with rock and roll artists, we would have to call them that. Sometimes they would take days to get a part. And when I did Bob Seger's record, Like a Rock record, I did 6 or 7 tunes on that after Russ Kunkel got me the gig because he ran away. And I realized that I'm working with the Silver Bullet Band. Great! But it's 25 takes per song. Ugh. And I was using like 1930 Ludwig, really deep tuned snare drums that are real kind of sacred and brittle. And, after 5, 6 takes, you got to change your head again. I'm going, oh, just, only 16 more takes. So, a different world. And then in jazz, you go for you listen to the melody, but each time you're playing with 3 other guys or 2 other guys, everything changes all the time. So you're adjusting your part in real time. And then, the rest kind of my pop side is developing the correct thing. We as drummers may get our parts a little quicker, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're the correct parts because we're waiting for the guitar player maybe to figure out his voicings and simplify, and the bass player to simplify, and then the keyboard player is figuring out if he's shadowing the melody, and all these different variables, which then will cause you to vary. So.
No, but I think, for your career, it was always a mix of playing live and studio. So you always did both, right?
Always, and when I first joined Rufus in '78, and then I finished out their world tour, then moved into into the Los Angeles area and started cutting a Rufus solo record called Numbers on ABC Dunhill, and it was the old label, and then we moved into Reunion with Chaka with Quincy Jones. So that was, but in between there, I was working with Stanley Clarke. So we went and did Saturday Night Live in year 6 in January, and we were it was the only show ever in SNL's 50 years that there were 2 musical acts, and one was Cheap Trick and one was Stanley Clarke, George Duke, and John Robinson. Wow. And it was just, we played a song called Wild Dog, and it was like that old Maxell commercial, where that dude's all slick back. Everybody's like,
what's that?
It was an incredibly angry young power trio. So but that was live, and then I did a little bit with them, and then started going major studio work. I was asked to join Michael's live band, Lionel Richie's touring band, later Steve Winwood's touring band, and I was too busy working in the studios at the peak to give that up. Plus, I had started a new family at that time, and just a lot of variables. I moved. I never lived in the city. I'm an Iowa boy, so I lived way the hell out past the valley, and I'm still that way. So then, I was asked by Lenny Waronker, the president of Warner Brothers, "You've got a band, right, JR?" I go, "Yeah, I got a band." And he goes, "Well, John Fogerty needs a band. Do you want to be his MD?" And I go, I've always loved Creedence. And then I go, "Yes." I took the job, hired my cats. Everybody got paid really well, and it was a baseball tour, but he was being sued by Saul Zaentz, so we couldn't play any Creedence tunes. And there were gigs in sheds where people were throwing beer bottles at us.
You were playing the wrong tunes.
I swear, no, they wouldn't, and we couldn't. I go, "Jesus, come on, John, who'll stop the rain? Go!" "I can't." I go, "Shit." So we got through that, and then, let's see, what else did I tour with? I mean,
but it sounds like there were challenges, like sometimes it's challenges to.
Who knew? I mean, I've been the guinea pig on a lot of situations, and just like even with our book release, it was like a lot of new territory because we were doing 4 simultaneous live streams. It's like, damn, okay. So, but I've been with David Foster live since '94, and
I've seen you actually. I've seen you in Las Vegas, in the Mandala Bay.
Yeah, Mandalay Bay. The early days or the later days?
No, it was no, not the first ones. It was one
Hitman
of
2?
these
Hitman 2. Yeah, that's a good one.
with no, it's great. That's an East.
Yeah, Nate,
I'm
Nate.
playing bass myself, so it was.
Where are you located?
Pardon me?
Where are you located?
In Cologne, in Germany.
Oh my God, I miss Germany so much, and I have not been there in a few years. So
Come
I'm sure
back. Come here.
I would love to. I mean, shit, my grandfather in World War I was Sergeant of Arms of Horses in Koblenz.
Yeah, it's not too far away. So you see,
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
we're
well,
closing the loop. We're closing the loop.
like I'm going to see him. Anyway, enough of that. So, and then the Streisand thing started with a real big band, which was so great.
But
And like,
when you got into all this stuff, and very, in a after just several years, a few years working with all these great people, did you really was there a time when you realized, oh shit, this is where I come to, or was kind of going and going and going but
well, I'm like that ever ready battery bunny. Yes, I'm still going, and I'm also still working on live situations. Um, I had a trio called SRT, which is an organ kind of a funk jazz trio. Right now, I'm putting back together the J.R. Robinson Experience, which will play bigger venues, and will play a lot of my hits with correct singers, and also it'll be very hip. It'll be stuff that people will want to see, but it won't be smooth jazz. But it'll be really, really good. So we're working on that. We're working on taking this book to a future documentary. I've started a foundation called Music Through Arts Fund, which people can start to donate. It's about giving children. I live in California, so we have a hard time with music education in schools. It's mostly
yeah,
sports. And where I grew up, it wasn't like that in Iowa. So that's a slow developing fund, and that people will know about this more and more. I think it's really good, for musicians, dancers, artists, and that sort of thing. But I'm
great.
still like tomorrow. I go out with David do a weekend gig. Monday I do another gig in Dallas with David. I come back and I'm on the Quincy Jones USC panel on Wednesday with Patty Austin and Greg Gaines and Ed Eckstein and Mervyn Warren, and it's just a beautiful thing because Quincy is now getting way up there. So USC is
Yeah.
honoring him next week, and then I go up to DW. I live kind of close to where Drum Workshop is, and
Oh, really? Yeah.
I am releasing Slingerland drums again under the DW moniker starting next Thursday. I don't know when it's publicly going to be announced. I mean, everybody knows this is happening. So,
Okay.
so, and then
It's not a secret anymore.
the following week, and I'm taking that first set and bringing it into center staging, and then the Hollywood Bowl for November 3rd with David Foster's 75th birthday concert, which is huge. So we're bringing those, and we are also, I can unveil that I am now with Istanbul Mehmet Cymbals. So we are definitely making a lot of sonic and physical changes, which is kind of goes back to when I was a child, and how I played with early Ludwigs and then eventually early Slingerlands.
But this is for somebody from kind of outside, you're going from, as you said, one day you're going to, with David Foster, next day meeting Quincy Jones, and then going to this big venue. This is kind of out of a world, for somebody, like us. But do you really like to, to come back and play smaller places? Is there are chances, you can do that, and enjoy kind of smaller audiences, cozy places?
I think that's wonderful. That's why, Mitch Town, myself, and Andrew Sinowick formed SRT, which you guys can stream that. It's available, or you can buy it on all the platforms. But it's an organ trio, but it's not like Jimmy Smith. It's a little more contemporary. And we made a great record. We also did some live stuff. So we would go play like a Birdland in New York, and We were just at Comwa Jazz in Santa Cruz, California. So it's like that's very intimate. And to lose, I mean, the Rolling Stones used to do that. I mean, if you remember, like years ago, I think when Charlie was still kicking, and they would like go to some small club in Toronto or somewhere and just blow in this little rock club. It's like the Troubadour, and
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. It takes us back to who we are and were, and those are things that we always have to remember. I mean, listen, when I joined Frampton in '96, even though I had started working with him in '87, I did 4 albums with Frampton. Um, when we were on stage, Frampton Comes Alive 2 at the Fillmore and all these gigs, he had this rig like from me to 8 to 10 feet long of just correct amps, speakers combos, Leslie's, all this stuff, and I'm thinking, God, this shit's going to be loud and whoa, and very Iron Maidenish, and it wasn't. It was controlled, beautiful music. However, behind me, I had a 3,000 watt Triamped system of speakers that we weren't using in-ears and subwoofers that was just like, oh, I loved it. And I didn't have to overplay. I did, and everything was controlled, and I do miss that. There's something about that. Rufus was like that in the earlier days. We were a very loud rock and roll R&B band,
Nice.
but clean.
But what, funny? So coming back to the book,
Yes, sir.
what was the decision, or what was the trigger, to let's start and write this down. I read that you also do kind of your keynote speakers, and this is something that
Yes.
you enjoy to do. And was that something that led to the book, or how did that develop to create the book?
Well, this lovely lady, let's see if I can get her on there.
Yeah.
There. Allison Mang is was the catalyst and the producer, and now we are engaged. But that came later. After we had met in Sarasota 3 years ago, then we started conversing and talking about things, and she knew what I was, who I was and what I was doing, and I wasn't impressing. It was just a normal conversation, and all of a sudden she asked me, "You should do a book." I go, "Wow, I mean, I've done solo records. I would love to do a book. I don't know anything about doing a book. I mean, I don't think I did well in English lit in high school. In college, I went to Berkeley, so we didn't have to take English lit. So even though I was great, my sister was a literary major, and my mother was a writer, and her father was a famous sports writer named Fred Haney for baseball. But all right, so Post-its. She goes, all right, go to Kinko's and buy a whole bunch of stuff. Get all these markers, get all these Post-its, get all the. So pretty soon, 2 weeks later, we're having Zooms and talk. I look around, and the Post-it monster has entered my control room. Everywhere is something like groove or good as gold or some weird Quincy Jones story or something. And I just write down and I'd never had anybody do that before. I mean, have you had somebody, get into your brain like that? I had never done that. So I learned a lot. And Allie, within that process, has this list of 100 words, and this is her technique. And you look at that list, and you have 4 or 5 minutes, and you circle the best 10 of those words. Then take a break, and then you have another 15 minutes or 10 minutes to write an essay about yourself with those words you circled. And then that ended up becoming the what's the word, prefaces, the beginning of this. The ball was now working. The ball was rolling down the street, and then all of a sudden things started coming, And I go, how about titles? I go, don't worry about titles yet, So as many records as I've made, probably more than anyone, and I've done 2 solo records by myself. I'm working on a third. Book is way harder.
Can imagine. I can
Way
imagine.
harder.
I think I have one of your albums, the Feng Shui, or what was it called?
Feng shui,
Feng
a made
Shui.
up a made up word. Dig this. I did that in 2003, 2004,
20 years ago, right?
many years ago, and
20.
yeah, it was. Jeez, it was.
20 years ago. I think it was at the time. I think an email from you when I bought it on CD Baby.
Oh gosh,
That
yeah.
was that was the time, man.
Well, it was a good record. We did that on a Mackie digital console, which is I ended up giving it away. I gave the console away, but what was I going to say? You know, doing a solo project. It I learned a lot from Quincy. It's all about, you know, casting the right musicians for the right call. So, you know, you have to fund the book or the record yourself, or the book yourself. You have to fund it. It's very rare that, and you know, unless you're Stephen King, you have a giant publishing deal. You know, Stephen King's like the Eagles, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and so what we, you know, I've self-funded all my projects, but I've always looked at the solo projects as I'm not trying to get a hit record. I'm just trying to do something that I've never done before. Like now, for example, I've scored three films partially with a great director named Danny Gold, but I'm also now in the process of two new films. But I've moved behind the camera a little bit and uh, writing lyrics and scoring. So scoring film. That's why I have a very updated a very updated studio here. And when we're not on the road, then we start thinking about how, you know, what we're going to do in that next step. So, you know, you got to keep. If you get stagnant, then sometimes you, all the time, if you're stagnated and you wake up in the morning and then look in the mirror, you're not going to be pleased with who you see. So I've always in the book, there's a lot of scenarios like this. There's a section called Coach's Corner, which is really, really important to people. And because I was a basketball player and track runner in my day, and so we learn a lot from that. There's a section for drummers, many about 70 key points right when you sit on the drum throne, right before you start playing the show, that you think about. You know, like, are the wing nuts tight, or you know, this or that, or my music in order, or blah blah. There's so many things that you think. Is the bass drum beater loose? Is it going to come out during the big rock song? You know, you know, and just different things. There's a section in my book about bass players, and I dedicate this. If it wasn't for bass players, moi, drummers can't really find their way or their soul. You know, we've seen now since COVID on social media, there's just a barrage of drum solos, drum things, weirdness, circus acts. I'm thinking, holy shit. But none of these guys are going to get called,
Yeah, I
unfortunately.
think
It,
that's something I think as you have, started in the 70s, that was much different in the industry, in the studios, in the productions compared to what we have now. I think what I heard from other musicians that have been long in the business, that things in the studios, in the business changed. And because of all this social media stuff, as you said, you have brilliant technical players,
right.
doing, an Instagram post every day. Are they showing up on records or shows? Some do, some are just teaching or whatever. I think it's on. I'm not a drummer. I can see some value in showing specific techniques or stuff. I'm not sure if you agree, but I think I can imagine that there would be a meaning in it, and somebody can take something from it. But for me, it's also the musical aspect, to move forward.
And it should be because, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago, drumming was communicative, you know, but since this rock thing happened from big band from the 40s to where we are now, um, it has to do with being in a band. It's not a fashion show on The Voice. And working with David is an honor because we get to work with all these American Idol singers, but they get plugged into a band. There's an actual live band. So I think what you're saying is absolutely imperative. We learn our instruments to be put in a band. And hence we were talking about my solo records. Well, shit. I mean, of course, and even a lot of all my new stuff, I write from the piano, from keyboard. So there's all this keyboard heavy wave, but in reality, they're just blueprints or sketches of what will and finally will be because there'll be a band. And that's why we learn to play this. We don't, I see even bass players, because I'm always looking for young bass players for my new band, and I see all this stuff, and I see, I just I can analyze it. There is one drummer that'll go unnamed that is just freaks me out when I see this dude, and I'm like, how is this even possible? For example, in the old days, if I was playing too much stuff on the drum set during a recording, most of the time recordings, because Quincy live wouldn't, he'd bust me on occasion. But if I was playing too much, he would push the talk back down and or walk and tell me in my ear, JR, you're dancing too much. And then walk away. And I'm thinking, well, I know what he means. I'm playing too much shit. And it's just, in other words, as a drummer and you're playing in a rhythm section, assuming behind a vocalist or the vocalist is overdubbing, after you hear those couple of takes, if your part jumps out from the other three guys, it's in some capacity, that means that it's not right. It needs to be blended. So the drums it's not Spectrum from Billy Cobham. It's something else. And so I think drummers, and that takes a long time to develop maturity.
I think that's maybe a bad effect of all this social media stuff, that everybody believes I need to expose myself. I need to expose myself, which is not what you're just saying, right? It's
Yeah.
it should
Well,
be a team.
everybody's desperate since COVID, and also our technology with iPhones and et cetera. Yeah, there should be a new app, an automatic AI app that when somebody does some sort of a piece of crap song on their iPhone, it immediately either buzzes them or erases it. Like right out of the gate, like oh shoot, God, I guess the producer police are out there,
So are you pretty much following, what's happening in new music and younger people releasing music? Do you have time really to, try to find out what's coming, what's new?
I do, and I'm always employed to learn more. I have my youngest son, Jack Robinson, great drummer. You guys follow him on social. He's really, really good. He's only 23. And a lot of people go, oh, well, you're really lucky to be JR's son. Well, I don't give him anything. He's got to earn everything through his own style. However, if I see something that's totally messed up, I'll correct him. But the point being is that, he and his bandmate guy are trying to write all new things to actually separate themselves from whatever you hear. And today, shoot, when I went to Berkeley in '73, it was analog, and there weren't as many everyone's around, and it was almost like it was perfect. And now there's so many people that say they're musicians, but they don't know how to mic a vocal or a violin or a trumpet, or they don't know how to arrange, or they don't know how to control some sort of or an analog console, how to do signal processing, how to mic a drum set, why is everything so distant, or is the mic out of phase? And Do they really know this? Now, I've seen some of the Utes, as we say, do know a lot of this stuff. So there's a huge portion of this young generation that is paying attention to the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and which were just monster musical decades. And the other ones are just out for their 1 minute of fame.
Yeah. I think there's also something that maybe it's also because of social media and all the possibilities to distribute videos and all your stuff, and that it's kind of from my point of view, it's kind of a misbalance between, some bands and musicians doing big shows, and there's a lot of smaller, really great bands, especially in this area that we are exploring, like jazz, rock, fusion, stuff, instrumental music, fantastic bands, and then they play in a small club, and you have 50 people.
Well, I mean, here in the Los Angeles area, there's not a lot of great jazz clubs here. There's Catalina's, which is interesting. And I just played there about 3 weeks ago with David Garfield for his 50th. There's the Baked Potato, which is kind of an old, as a drummer, when you sit on that stage. Well, when you're out in the audience,
I'm there every time.
Sounds good. Well, it sounds good there, but when you're the drummer sitting against that wall, there's no the frequencies are really hard, so you have a tendency to maybe play a little harder there, and that's I mean,
I've seen so many people in that club, which from my view, jazz rock fusion heroes. For them, for me, they were heroes. And then I've seen them playing for 40 people, and a baked potato and two beers. It was kind of, for me, shocking. Because they were my heroes. For years.
Right. Well, and that's kind of what the Baked Potato offers. They open up that back room. But, there is I remember I did Larry Carlton's Last Night record live there, which was just extraordinary. I mean, I had a great, huge, him and Joe Sample. But, playing live clubs has it because of the way everything's flipped pre-COVID and then COVID, there are no more record huge deals anymore. So you can't make any money making a record. Royalty streams now, the actual royalty situation from record labels washed up. So now people are looking at numerical streams and adding up numerical stream numbers, thinking that that's equative to a dollar sign. And it's nothing to do with that. It's like you'll never make a dime streaming your stuff on platforms. And then the other thing was, radio disc jockeys, they all used to be greased and hey man, there's this new band called the Blobbles, and here's a CD player. Play this, and all right, I'm going to play it at 9:10, and I'm going to play it at 11:10, and then 1:10. I'll play it 4 times for that CD player. Okay, all right. What about next month? Well, then you got to grease them again. But it was a machine that was working, and that's how you got to the people through their ears, not through digital zeros and ones, and so the whole industry has. It's faltered by using new technology. And I know that there are platforms and people like Elmo Lavano and these new entrepreneurs that are doing things that the younger kids, I'm with David Foster. You guys don't know, but all of a sudden David will bring up a singer in the middle of the show. And he goes, all these, people that stand up, their mothers or grandfathers or somebody has always told them that they're the next Celine Dion. And then they get up there and they freeze like a friggin' deer. And it's like, okay, you've had your 15 seconds and, 1 out of 10 will be good when we do these things. And it's kind of cool, but, I'm not denigrating these new young artists because we are all looking at What's special? Is there another Josh Groban coming out? Is there another Eddie Van Halen coming out? Is another George Benson coming out? Is there another Louis Johnson bass player coming? No,
Yeah.
there hasn't been. And there are a lot of people try to emulate it, but you got to play these things from your heart. And uh, I guess just there's the pie got there's a lot less pieces on that pie, or I mean, sorry, more pieces in the pie now, and it's hard to fathom.
I
So
think that's part of the problem, that you have so many musicians that flooding everything. If you search for something on YouTube or what, for, guitar player and blah, 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 you get, thousands, millions of, search results, and they're all great.
you know, well,
So
and
that's,
it's scary. So what do you do? And I mean, I'm searching for some younger blood right now, and in which we're having good success. But when I'm sitting in the room with maybe a young band, and I'm not feeling things, or there's overplaying going on from some person, that I'm like, oh God, you just don't know. You don't know, and that's
I
why I
think
love,
that's,
you know.
but that's challenging. Yeah, I can imagine what do you do? You get hired, you come to the studio, and then everybody is kind of over the top, and you have no clue what they want. And then you sit there, you play, and they say, no, 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 that's not what we want. I think that's a challenging situation. I'm pretty sure you had that.
Well, oh God, yeah. I mean, shit, I even had that on the Daft Punk album where, Nathan and Paul and I are jamming. They go, you guys jam on something that's around 116 BPM and make it in the key of G flat. Okay. So there's nothing. And all of a sudden, about 5 minutes later, I know they're recording because that's the way they are. And they come out and go, Paul and Nate, you guys just go somewhere, take a break for an hour. JR,
Okay.
what we'd like you to do is play that same 116 beat, BPM, and play it with eighth notes, and then maybe add some ghost notes. I know what they're doing, so they're changing the whole thing. I always tell young drummers or drummers that are in the studio, if they get called for a sampling or slash loop session, but they don't know it yet. They need to once they get in there and they find out that the producers goes, okay, Billy, just play 4 bars of that loop. But all right, now play it in 4 bar increments and just keep playing it with the click. And you know that they're recording. So the question is, the drummer at that point should go, hey, Mark, are you sampling me? Oh yeah, we're sampling you. So in other words, you're going to take my best 4 bars and plug it into a song that you're writing, and then that's it. Oh yeah, that's what we're going to do. Well, you know what, Mark? What I'm playing is triggering you to write that song. So in reality, you should have partial writers when you're doing that. To get drummers to have the balls to do that is very, very difficult.
Yeah, you need to be careful because you also want to get the next job, most
You
likely.
want to get the next job, and that's why with the Daft Punk situation, I did learn my lesson, but in reality, I was highly compensated. And then I've got I Feel It Coming by The Weekend came after that on a whole nother platform. So I go, okay, what I got out of it was great, but in reality, some of those things I should have had co-writers on.
But coming to this studio situations, have you been, in something that really got difficult for you in terms of, to play it, to technically, bringing you to your boundaries or something like that? Because, looking to what you have done, at least for us, it looks like, oh, this is all easy. I can do everything, but
Well, you said Sklar? Yeah. Yeah.
no, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you said Lee Sklar, one of my dear friends. There's been a few times, I mean, working for the great movie composer Christoph Beck, we would do things like The Hangovers. I did all 3 of those, and some other movies between him and Teddy Shapiro. But Christoph wrote a part that was like, I don't know, 80-second cue, and I'm playing with a great bass player, a great rock guy. I can't right now I can't remember his name, but and I look at the drum part, and it's guys that are working for him or writing or programming them, and then having them printed out. And I'm reading the drum part, and it's got an amazing amount of double bass drum, syncopated double bass drum action within this rock funk groove. And I'm going, oh God! And it was probably about that tempo, and I'm going, shit. I can play it, but I can't play that with that because it's really five limbs. And I'm going, oh shit. So I walk in, and I go, Christoph, I can't play verbatim what you got. He goes, don't worry about that yet. Just put your own thing on there and play it. I go, okay, thank you very much. And I did. And then what came out was I picked out the accents that I felt worked well with the bass part and what they were trying to accomplish, and then added the hits that I could figure out how to stick correctly. Because they throw that stuff at you just boom. All right, now play it. I feel like I'm a violinist. Just reading, and it's a little bit more than that as a drummer. So yes,
I think
that's
some other players told me that when all this programming came up, and the programmers that didn't play the instrument, they don't think about that there's only two hands or 2 feet, and that a flute player needs to breathe, or they just.
Well, I mean, that happened in the 80s. I mean, I can tell you, I don't know, we could talk for days on this, when keyboard players starting getting in control of full production in the early 80s. And that's where I was really cutting my teeth on these hit records and a lot of sessions. And certain keyboard players would program the drum machines and had absolutely no clue. Other people, like David Hawk Walensky, for example, from Rufus, who wrote Ain't Nobody, did have a concept of programming, and I replaced it, which was interesting. So we kept that concept, but it affected a lot of drummers' careers when the keyboard players started programming drum machines. I wouldn't allow that. I would own the equipment and learn it as like a tool belt.
Yeah, it should sound natural,
It should. I mean, listen, when I score and write, I've got now guitar programs. I do play guitar, but not like I should be playing, like Al Di Meola or anybody, or John. I can't play like that shit. Or George Benson, world's greatest guitar player, in my opinion. But I will, I'm seeing your telly back there and the acoustic, and I'll come up with some simplistic ideas, or maybe play a sharp 9 chord here because it's cool, and then blah blah blah. But and use these programs. So I am initially being that bad keyboard programmer trying to take a guitar player's job, but I'm not, because if indeed that cue makes it to fruition, I'm going to call a real guitar player.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
just a starting point.
It's kind of how we do it now, and it's kind of sad. If we are all in the same room together, though, it's like, wow, it's another human being in the room with me. Holy mackerel. And he's breathing.
Yeah, that's great. So music moves on, and
let's hope so.
Absolutely. And it's good to see that people like you really, push it forward. You share all your stuff. I'm a big fan of books like you now released, and others, telling us the stories, because there's a lot of stories behind it, behind the, right. To work with the people to develop the ideas. And I think, all the stories from the studio and on the road, I really like that.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I did keep this book clean pretty much, because, the old adage is, if you do a tell-all book, you'll never work again. And you can easily get canceled. And, I've got thousands of those stories. And, but this book is basically, it's about my life, but it's also to help somebody who's not even in the music industry's life. It has all positive inflections, and learning from. I mean, there's a section about bullying in here. You know, there's all sorts of really, really good stuff, and I think things that everybody's gone through, and they can relate to this book. And it is available in Germany. I believe it's Amazon.
It's available on Amazon. Yeah.
And then unfortunately it's just in English, but because my German really sucks.
We will manage.
I know you guys speak better English than we do, so this is really good.
No, not really.
We're going to be working on an audio book. We'll start that editing in a few weeks here, and that's a whole nother venture. You know,
so you will read it.
I'm going to read it. Allie's going to be here producing me, and I'm going to. You know, I'm trying to follow these guidelines of how you do. I've never done that before. So it's like, you know, well, you know, I'm like, hopefully it's like, and he walked through the river.
Stop again.
Yeah. Oh, and he walked through the river. No, I'm not going to do that. It'll be fun. And it'll probably be some extra added bonus because it's coming out of my brain in real time, you know. So
like now, it's really good to hear the stories.
Thanks, George.